What happens when Britain's most beloved TV host meets Hollywood royalty with a reputation for drama? You won't believe what unfolds when Meghan Markle sits down with Alison Hammond on This Morning, expecting a softball interview, only to face the kind of hard-hitting questions that would make even the most seasoned politicians squirm. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these two powerhouses clash in what became the most explosive interview of the year. The tension was palpable from the moment Meghan walked onto the This Morning set, her designer heels clicking against the studio floor, with an air of entitlement that seemed to fill the entire room. Alison Hammond, known for her warm but no-nonsense interviewing style, greeted her guest with her signature smile, but those who know Alison well could detect something different in her demeanor, a steely determination that suggested this wouldn't be the puff piece Meghan's team had clearly expected. "Meghan, lovely to have you here," Alison began, settling into her chair as the cameras rolled live across the nation. "Now, you've been making quite a few headlines lately about your various business ventures and public statements. I think our viewers are really keen to understand where you're coming from on some of these issues." Meghan's smile appeared practiced, almost mechanical, as she adjusted her position in the guest chair. "Thank you for having me, Alison. I'm always happy to share my truth and connect with people who understand the importance of authentic storytelling." But Alison wasn't about to let this interview follow the usual script. Leaning forward slightly, she pressed on with a question that would set the tone for everything that followed. "Speaking of authentic storytelling, there's been quite a bit of controversy around some of your recent claims about your experiences. Some people are saying there are inconsistencies in your various interviews. How do you respond to that?" The change in Meghan's expression was immediate and unmistakable. Her carefully constructed smile faltered, replaced by a look of barely contained irritation. "I'm sorry, but I think there might be some misunderstanding about what this interview was supposed to cover. My team was very clear about the topics we'd be discussing." Alison's response was swift and professional, but with an edge that cut through the studio's artificial warmth. "Well, Meghan, this is live television, and our viewers deserve honest answers to honest questions. You're here as a public figure, making public statements, so surely you can address these concerns. What happened next would become the stuff of television legend." Meghan's mask of composed celebrity completely slipped as she straightened in her chair, her voice taking on a sharp, condescending tone that shocked viewers across the country. "I don't appreciate being ambushed like this, Alison. This is exactly the kind of toxic behavior I've been speaking out against. You're supposed to be supporting women, not tearing them down." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge, but Alison Hammond didn't back down. If anything, her resolve seemed to strengthen as she responded with the kind of directness that had made her one of Britain's most respected interviewers. "Meghan, asking legitimate questions isn't tearing anyone down, it's journalism. And, frankly, if you can't handle basic accountability, maybe you shouldn't be making public statements in the first place." The studio fell into a tense silence that seemed to stretch on forever, broken only by the distant hum of the cameras continuing to capture every moment of this unprecedented confrontation. Meghan's face flushed with what appeared to be genuine anger, her carefully maintained public persona crumbling in real time. "You know what, Alison?" Meghan's voice rose, losing all pretense of media-trained composure. "This is exactly why I stepped away from all of this. The British media's obsession with trying to destroy me, the constant negativity, the refusal to just let me live my life and tell my story on my own terms." Alison's response was measured but firm, her years of experience handling difficult interviews evident in every word. "But Meghan, you're the one who keeps putting yourself in the spotlight. You're the one doing interviews, writing books, making documentaries. You can't have it both ways. You can't court publicity and then complain when that publicity includes scrutiny." This observation seemed to hit a nerve that ran deeper than anything else in the conversation. Meghan's eyes flashed with an intensity that suggested this was about much more than just one television interview. "That is incredibly unfair, and you know it. I have every right to control my own narrative without being subjected to this kind of hostile questioning." The word hostile seemed to galvanize Alison in a way that surprised even veteran crew members who had worked with her for years. Her voice took on a strength and clarity that filled the entire studio. Hostile? Meghan, I've asked you perfectly reasonable questions about public statements you've made. If that feels hostile to you, then maybe the problem isn't with my questions. Maybe the problem is with your answers. What followed was a moment of pure television drama that would be replayed and analyzed for months to come. Meghan sat in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity, her mouth slightly open as if she couldn't quite believe someone had spoken to her so directly. When she finally found her voice, it trembled with barely controlled fury. I don't have to sit here and be treated like this. This is exactly the kind of behavior that forced me to leave in the first place. The constant attacks, the refusal to show basic human decency, the way you people think you have the right to judge everything I do. Alison's response was immediate and devastating in its simplicity. You people? Really, Meghan? You're going to sit there and talk about decency while reducing everyone who disagrees with you to you people? That's not very progressive of you, is it? The accusation seemed to strike at the very heart of Meghan's carefully constructed public image. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, and finally a kind of cold calculation that suggested she was weighing her options in real time. When she spoke again, her voice had taken on a tone that was simultaneously wounded and threatening. You know what, Alison? I came here in good faith, hoping to have a real conversation about important issues. But it's clear that you're more interested in playing games and trying to create drama for your ratings than actually listening to what I have to say. The irony of this statement wasn't lost on Alison, who responded with a slight smile that managed to be both professional and devastating. Meghan, the only drama here is your reaction to perfectly normal interview questions. Our viewers aren't stupid. They can see exactly what's happening here. This seemed to be the final straw for Meghan, who began gathering her things with sharp, aggressive movements that suggested she was beyond caring about appearances. This interview is over. I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected like this. My team will be in touch about this ambush. But Alison wasn't finished. As Meghan stood to leave, the veteran host delivered what would become the most quoted line of the entire confrontation. Meghan, the door's right there. But maybe before you go, you might want to consider that if everywhere you go smells like drama, maybe it's time to check your own shoes. The impact of these words was immediate and electric. Meghan froze halfway to standing, her face cycling through emotions so quickly it was almost impossible to follow. For a moment, it seemed like she might sit back down and continue the fight, but instead, she straightened to her full height with a dignity that seemed forced and artificial. Goodbye, Alison. I hope you're proud of yourself, Meghan said, her voice carrying a finality that suggested this wasn't just the end of an interview, but something much more significant. And with that, Meghan Markle walked off the This Morning set, her heels clicking against the studio floor with the same entitled rhythm they had arrived with, but now carrying her away from what had become the most explosive interview of her post-royal career. The cameras continued rolling as Alison Hammond sat alone at the interview desk, her expression unreadable as the reality of what had just transpired settled over the studio like a heavy blanket.